And then I'm going to start the Fathom recording. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about quickly, we'll do who we are, a fun fact, a win we have. If you were on the previous week, we'll do an accountability. And then we'll hop in with Nimrod. I'll give you a quick overview of who he is and what he's about. Even though I sent that to you guys too. He does AI, all the cool stuff. And then I'll start off with a question for Nimrod. And then he'll answer it and kind of tell us a little about what's going on. And then we'll have everyone go around and they can kind of comment at what he's saying. And if you guys want to add a question in there, we can do that. And then we'll close out with greatest benefit, action step, and gratitude. So we'll kick it off with Jacoby. Who are you and what's a fun fact? What are you up to?
Uh,
Oh, he goes mute on me. Jacoby, you there?
Hello.
Yeah. Are you good?
I dropped my phone on my face and now it's in driving mode. Apparently, I don't know. Today is just not the day. My name is Jacoby. I am a contractor for the United States government. I guess I'm living in West Virginia. I'm from Detroit. Fun fact about me: I'm in the trial stages of developing a tabletop game. I guess.
What's a tabletop game mean for those who don't know?
Uh, like D&D, but better.
Okay, very cool. Also, Jacoby, he told me before he's fighting food poisoning today, so if he has to mute or unmute, which I don't know how fun that fact is, but he's here. Dylan, what about you?
Was
Who are
just
you?
a brief
Just who
intro.
you are, fun fact. Yeah.
My name's Dylan Decker. I live in West Palm Beach, Florida. I met Jordan College, University of Tampa. Broker energy commodities. I focus on renewable fuel that goes into gasoline and help our clients trade futures and options around it. Fun fact, I got my scuba diving license or certification when I was 12 and got into that in the early years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What was your favorite dive?
Went on a cool one. It's actually where I got certified. It was like a family trip to Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic. I've dove in a lot of other places since, but like 2 or 3 years after going back, once I was certified to go a little bit deeper, they have a shipwreck down there that's crashed in like the late 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And it was like had like a kind of like metal / wooden hull that would, when you were down there, when the waves would pass, it was like disconnected other than the bottom of the ship. So the front of the ship, like we're talking about like 30 feet high and like 15 feet out, would creak off of the ship. And then as the wave passed, it would smash back into the boat. So it would just make this creaky noise every like 10 seconds and then hit the boat every like 20, 30 seconds. That was pretty interesting. Don't want to swim in the middle of that one.
That's fascinating. Chase, what about you, man? Who are you and what's a fun fact?
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, my name's Chase. I'm out here in St. Petersburg, Florida. Um, Currently running my own lawn care landscaping company. Fun fact, I'm getting married in 40 days, 40 or
Oh,
41
let's
days.
go. Let's go. Solomon, what about you?
Hey, my name is Solomon. I'm a geologist in Cincinnati. I work in civil engineering, and I wouldn't have brought this up, but I got off work early and I just finished drawing. I'm also in a. I also play D&D, and I just finished drawing a map for my game. So
Sounds like you
I
got a
guess
link up with
nerd
Jacoby.
solidarity with Jacoby there.
I love that.
I'd have a quickie response, but
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
too tired. I'm too tired.
Okay. Donnie, what about you?
Hey, nice to see you all again. I'm Donnie from Atlanta, Georgia. Currently, I work as a civil engineer as well, entry level, so just a CAD technician right now. But fun fact about me, I'm starting up a coaching business and I've been doing coaching for mindset for the past year or two.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Nimrod, you got any fun facts? I know last time you dropped the salsa on us, so I don't want you going back to that one. You got any news?
I can't go back to salsa.
You can if you want.
That's the only thing fun about me at the moment. I'm in the middle of sending 90 emails out to investors for my startup company. I hope to raise money. It'll be a fun fact if any of them answer in the positive, but it'll be depressing if they don't.
Oh, don't put that much expectation on yourself. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. You got a very captivating story, and I think it's pretty cool. So now we'll dive into wins really quick. So what we do here is just it can be anything and everything. It's something in your day to day. So Jacoby, what's a win that you got this past week? I know you might not have a win right now, but what's a win from the past week?
I mean, I avoided work on a Monday. That's a win. I
Okay.
guess.
Of course that's a win. It's whatever you want it to be, man. Solomon, what's a win for you?
Pass.
Okay. Donnie, what about you? What's a win you got?
A win so far is that finished the new videos for my landing page yesterday. So they're
Okay.
now up on my website.
It's fantastic. That's awesome. Dylan, what about you? What's a win you got?
I saw Nimrod's background with AI and your location in Israel, so I don't know if this will have any overlaps, but that company, Palantir, it's like my biggest investment and like largest conviction trade this year. They just posted their earnings like 30 minutes ago, and they crushed Q3, and they're up pretty solidly in that hour. So it's good considering I got a little too much of a chunk of my portfolio in there.
That's been, defense has been a good sector for us last year.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one, that's for sure.
Yeah, if I ask any questions, we're gonna go too deep into Palantir. Dylan loves his Palantir, but that's good. That's good. Chase, what's a win you got?
Yeah, I'll say pretty much got the last thing of this wedding figured out. Just have to order the food, which is not because we're waiting, but we have to, the place we're ordering from won't take any reservations unless it's like 30 days out. So,
Oh,
but that's like the last thing. So a lot, big sigh of relief
yeah,
when you
of
get
course.
everything
There's
figured out.
so many factors with that. And then Nimrod, what's a win you got?
I took upon myself several commitments this year. The first one is the startup company Arc, but there's at least 3 more. And this week is the first week that I'm trying a new gig, which is to divide my calendar up. Like each company gets a day or two. And before I was having a lot of mental and emotional commute midday to shift from commitment to commitment. And so far, it's in Israel, we start the weekday on Sunday. So I'm 2 days in and I'm going into the 3rd day and it's working. I'm happy. This is good.
It's good. And then do you work all the way till Friday? So it's Sunday to Friday?
It used to be the case, but not anymore. No, most companies don't open on Friday, but startup companies are pretty much 24/7. We work all week, but
You can
people provide you a service on Sunday through Thursday here in Israel.
I got you. Okay. Very cool. And then Solomon, I know you were on last week. Yours was your accountability was about a car fixing your car, again, kind of up to. Oh, and then what's the win you got?
Yeah. So I guess my win can be that I got my engine repaired.
Okay.
It was
That's
like
awesome.
the some I don't know, it was like a $20 part. I don't even remember what it was.
Oh, cool. Well, as long as you're being proactive, that's good. So let's hop into it. So Nimrod Vromen is a highly engaging Australian Israeli thought leader and the new author of Prompting Happiness. He's a lawyer by profession and he hosts a podcast, Startup Confidential. He focuses specifically in AI and the UAV unit for Israel. To me, he's also like, I know a lot of us have many different, we'll have our main job and then maybe a side hustle. I have never seen anyone side hustle like Nimrod. So I think it'd be super valuable if you just explain what the past year has been like, just in general, for you to go from, hey, I'm leaving my lawyer job, because I had Nimrod on the podcast, if you guys listened. So he was basically doing startup advising. He would be their lawyer, their in-house, and then he basically was like, I'm gonna go do my own startup. And literally, it wasn't as soon as that happened, the October 7th kind of occurred.
I just forgot to bring one thing. I wanted to actually bring the book over as well. A moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, but so basically Nimrod, he's been doing all of this. Like, to me, it was very impressive because he had the steady job and he literally jumped off the deep end to start his own companies. And then he dives deep into taking on these outside obligations as well.
I have to say that history might say that this is actually like me crashing and burning. Look, I was 16 years a corporate lawyer. I represented hundreds of startup companies from inception through their entire life cycles, like pretty much about 650 companies. I would only represent companies. I would very rarely represent investors. And I did their founders agreements, and then when they built their advisory board, they raised a little bit of money and a little bit more and a lot more, and then they got sold. Some of the companies that I represent are worth several billions of dollars, and I knew them when the founders were not making ends meet. And I was always ambivalent towards my profession. Like, the legal profession is a profession where you generate documents. If I was on a bad day and people ask me what I did, I would say that I convert Word files into PDF files. I just make sure that they're signed. So I always wanted to do something different. It's also difficult when you're a lawyer and the clients that you represent are, there's only so much you can live vicariously through your clients. If your clients are suffering, if you're a litigator, you're like happy to be their consultant and not go through what they're going through. But if they're entrepreneurs who are changing the world or just making a lot of money or still being free and controlling their own future, then you sort of ask yourself if you could do it yourself. But then you have different insecurities creep in, especially revolving around whether or not you can really lead a product development around technology that you don't necessarily understand. So the first thing that I did was extract from the consulting that we were giving everything that wasn't legal and convince my law firm to put it in a consulting company. This was 4 years ago. Consulting company is called Consigliere. The next thing I did was I took a coacher, actually, Donnie, and she encouraged me to be creative and to explore my creativity, because she figured that I was suffering from the fact that the contracts are very repetitive and that I wanted to write something to counter that. So I wrote this TV series that is now an internet series for entrepreneurs called Startup Confidential, and produced it. You can find it on, I'll send you the link. It's for free, of course. And it's a narrative of 4 startup companies and their journeys. Supposed to be pretty funny and very informative. So it's in arcmedianetwork.com in the video series section. And then I found myself during COVID working 2 jobs, basically leading my legal practice and leading Consigliere. And they were both service businesses, and I was doing well at the time because there was a big boom in high tech, which further locked me into this golden cage. And then end of October 2022, not 2023, I was introduced to ChatGPT mid-October, and I figured, okay, this is the technological revolution that is going to change my profession, and that I can ride this wave and build something that will be the antithesis to the law firm and the consulting firm, to do what they do, but only with expert humans, and the rest is AI. So I started thinking about ARC, and I wrote all my thoughts down, and my thoughts were turned into this book, Prompting Happiness. which is on Amazon. Not trying to sell it, but if you're interested, it's about the future of the pursuit of happiness in the age of AI. And I wanted to, and I was ideating this company for a year, knowing that I would have to quit the legal profession and fold Consigliere into this company and replace all of the people in Consigliere with ARC's technology. And I didn't have the guts to do it for an entire year, which drove me insane and drove me to some unholy things. And then October 7th happened. And I realized that in my proportion spectrum, leaving this high-paying, lucrative job as a partner at a law firm, which for a Jewish mother is pretty much everything bar being a doctor, like my mother, to this high-risk startup company, that was my biggest decision. I have two girls. But when October 7th happened, it just made the decision this small. Like there were things that were so much bigger for us as a community and as a nation, as an individual and as individuals, that I just pretty much immediately quit. I went into reserves duty for 4 full months. That also helped me detached from my clients. I don't know who here has had, spouses where you were together for a long time, knew that you had to break up, and the thing that ended up breaking you up was one of you taking a long trip abroad and having to break up for that process. So being in reserves duty was the way for me to break up with my clients without having to do the talk with them. So that's what really drove the change, is this war. And now ARC is my full-time. Consigliere is just being acquired by ARC. I'm very low touch at the firm, only an hour or two a week, just making sure that the clients are being taken care of, promoting the book. And the book and the AI that we're doing in ARC is actually evolved into another company that I co-founded with someone who's running it exclusively. He's the full-time CEO. It's called For Posterity, and it's a company that does something similar to ARC and technologically, but completely different market-wise. It basically listens to elderly people speak for 5 to 8 minutes and gives them back a 5,000 to 20,000 word book of their lives for their grandkids and great-grandkids. So suddenly there's a lot of commitments. I'm facing, the defocus challenges, etc. But the main change, to answer your question, was driven by the war and resetting of my proportions and my understanding of proportions.
Absolutely. And so I think it's really important for everyone to realize, because not everyone has been tracking the war as you've seen. So what has the war been like for you to be going through this? Because the reason I think is really important for everyone is because you're in a really high state startup business, but at the same time you're also trying to juggle these two divides. So how do you manage that? Because I think everyone here, you hear they're all managing different things, and then we'll kind of go round robin so everyone can kind of hear what you got to say or give their input in as well.
So managing the divide between different ventures is an ongoing challenge for which I am constantly looking for hacks and adopting good useful habits for this, and the jury's out on whether or not it works. For example, venture capitalists who are considering an investment in ARC will at one point want to see my full-time commitment to ARC through an employment agreement that already has exceptions and caveats to the other engagements. And I'm going to have to explain myself to them and say that I'm an adult and I'm 42 and give me a break. I'm not your slave, but they may not invest. And moreover, there's substance to it. I do feel that the defocus is affecting me. I just feel like it's countered by by some synergies that I learned from each venture for the other. But it's not an easy sell for investors, not by a long shot. And when there's a lot of money coming in, I'm probably going to have to face some tough choices. The divide between going about your day-to-day life, family and business and work, and this war is just something that a human being in this decade is not really, equipped for, not even in conflict-ridden Israel. It's excuse my French, it's fucking insane. Other people here in Israel accept it. Many of the people here are in reserves duty, but it's very different to what you might know in the United States, where someone who's in the army is being paid for being in the army, and they get sent off for sometimes months on end in different places where the U.S. Army is positioned, and then they come back and then they're home. Here, it's Israel's a very small country, and you could be sent off for 2-3 weeks, or even for me, which I'm in a UAV unit, I could be sent off for a day and then come back. So the mindset shift is, frankly, I'm not dealing with it. It's a day-to-day struggle, and that's putting aside the fact that this is a very violent, tragic, soul-crushing war. It's horrendous. And by the way, I want to say for the people here who are interested, I'm an open book. I'm happy to discuss every single question you have, be it intrusive, inquisitory, or adversarial. I'm happy to discuss it. It's a subject that I get relief from discussing it, and I don't care, what sort of question is asked. I'm happy to share all the information you want about it. But yeah, I can't say that I'm winning in this struggle, but if you're from my vantage point in Israel, literally everyone is like facing this. You start a conference call, just one last anecdote, and people ask you, "Yo, dude, what's up?" And everybody's gonna be like, "Well, as good as it can be under the circumstances." Nobody even feels comfortable enough to just say okay or fine. So it's really it's really eating at us, eating
No,
away
I
at us.
do. I appreciate the candid nature. Like, I know a good amount of us are in Florida, and we literally were dealing with 2 hurricanes, and everyone's like, you're trying to manage both, and it's very, very challenging. So, Jacoby, for you, because I know you were military, what do you think about all like what Nimrod said, or if you have any questions, go for it.
About the mindset and just about like how like people in the military get moved around. Yeah, in a sense, we do have those months where we just drop off, and I can 100% agree with you that like the mindset change is definitely like the biggest struggle. And I know like you're like a complete professional, but like if you needed to talk to someone, I'm here to talk because I understand as a vet how it is dealing with military matters, especially when you have conflicting opinions. Because I I don't want to talk about you know everything that's going on in the Middle East, mainly because like it is a volatile subject, and I don't have the strength to really talk about it. It's not because I'm uncomfortable. It's just because I'm still going through food poisoning. But overall, like I definitely can understand where you're at. I wish that I could be as successful eventually, but I get it. I do get it because being in the military is definitely one of those challenges that I don't really wish on anyone else.
And then, Jacoby, you really like
So,
AI. So, are there any AI questions you have for Nimrod as well?
Well, I didn't want to take up an hour and a half talking to him. That's the thing. I kind of wanted to like do that on the back end or whenever
Oh,
he had other time. But I do
okay.
have a lot of questions. Mainly, are you hiring? But you're laughing, but I'm not. I'm genuinely
where are you
asking. But,
based? Where did you say that you're based?
I'm based in West Virginia right now.
In West Virginia. So, I mean, at one point we will be, yeah. I mean, if these 90 emails work out, my strategy depends on how much money we raise, but at a certain amount upwards, we're going to the US. I'm looking to penetrate the US market through Florida, but it's, beside the point where we hire, but we'll need to build a team there, and it's gonna include diverse team with different skills. So yeah, I'd be happy to discuss that for sure.
I sent you a connection on LinkedIn about 10 minutes ago, just by the way.
Perfect. So we can, I'll give you my contact details and we can make a connection about that gladly. Yeah, for sure.
I would be more than happy to talk about it, but like right now, just like today, I can't. If I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm still a little sick.
I hear
get
you.
it.
Well, I appreciate that. Dylan, what about you? What are you taking from this conversation?
Yeah, I guess I have two curiosities. One is you said you at the firm that you're at and are still, I guess, partially with, you broke out the consulting business as kind of like its own LLC. Out of curiosity, just with the structure in that, or I guess business etiquette where you are, or the terms with the fellow company or the prior company, are you able to reach out to people that you dealt with and consulted with for seed capital and what you're now going into?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
That's big, yeah.
yeah, for two reasons. One, Israel is a swampy, tiny place, and
Yeah.
it does uphold the freedom of occupation as a quasi-constitutional right.
Mhm.
And it's so small that it's almost impossible to
Always overlap.
enforce a
Yeah.
non-compete because you'd
Yeah.
be, you know. And then the other thing is that I'm an owner at the firm. I'm no longer an employee there. I've been a partner and an owner there for several years, and I own the relationships. If they want me to continue to refer clients to them, they're going to have to let me, you know, try to raise money from them, try to test ARC out on them. And frankly, I also built it a certain way where I gave the firm a few percentage points in ARC in consideration for some of their documents. One of the challenges that AI companies have, specifically in professional service technologies and legal tech, is that it's not enough to write a strong prompt chain and to develop a lot of AI agents to do the work that the platform is supposed to do. You have to sort of like lock the LLM from all sides. You have to lock it with good prompts. You have to make sure that it's creative only in silos, otherwise it starts hallucinating. You have to make sure that when it conducts research, it's based on the sources that you want it to conduct research in. And you have to make sure that when it churns out documents, it churns them out through a filter of best practice documents that your clients would be used to seeing. Otherwise, when you want it to produce a non-disclosure agreement, the basic LLMs will produce an Indian non-disclosure agreement because most English non-disclosure agreements were written in India. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to say by Indian law, but that's going to be the inspiration for it statistically. Yeah. So you want to lock it in with those documents. And my firm is 75 years old. It's like a quasi like Cooley or Latham or Wilson Sonsini. In Israel, it's not that size, but for Israel it is. And if they give us the documents, then we give them the equity, and then it's a lot of business incest, but it works.
Well, it sounds like that's worked out, you know, well and beneficial, rather than now you kind of have a healthy like co-business or relationship, however you want to call it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was also curious. So you mentioned with the reserve duty, you're on the UAV team focus. I mean, I would imagine that there's some type of they kind of the military will look at your skills and your background and pair that into something you'd be fit with, because it seems, you know, with your focus being AI, to be in a tech focused area. Is that by coincidence, or was there some type of structure in there?
Yeah, a good question. They could do more pairing skills with what people do in reserves duty.
Sounds like most governments.
Yeah, I don't think they do that. What they do is you have a mandatory conscription when you're 18 until you're 21. For men, and for women it's maybe a few months shorter these days, but it's almost 3 years. When you're 16, you get different aptitude tests, and then you get selected into this like pyramid where if you're selected to the top course, you have basically a choice of where to go. If you get eliminated, the top courses are 90% elimination. And then if you don't pass those, then you go to Gen Pop, which could be infantry or tanks or like armored vehicles or cannons. I was lucky. I got selected to pilot course, which is the top course in Israel. I was unlucky in the sense that I got eliminated within 2 months. It was very much like a reality show. And then they said, listen, there's a new unit. It was January 2001, March 2001. There's a new unit. We can't tell you what it does, but you have to go there. Don't go to I wanted to go to the Navy SEALs. Don't go there. I could have volunteered still to one of those special units. I went to this unit, discovered that it's the predator. I'm saying this in a good way. It's the McDonald's version of the Predator. Okay, it's like, and it's quite an effective machine that has a very significant influence on the battlefield.
Mhm.
And I did the course there. And once you do the course, that's where you do reserves duty until you are 45 for 30 days a year at least. Now, in the high-tech units, they'll release you earlier because you simply become technologically obsolete. You don't know how to operate the new system. So I was released when I was 37. And on October 7th, I fell into like a deep state of depression. And on October 9th, I pretty much volunteered back into my unit, not for the sake of annihilating our enemy, but for the sake of just being involved in what is our country's defining moment. But you can always ever go back to the unit in which you served during your mandatory service, which is actually not a good thing, because I have developed other skills. I could have helped represent Israel at The Hague when it was sued for genocide by South Africa. I could have helped consult the army on the implementation of or different use cases of AI. I got a small chance of doing that in the beginning of the war when there was chaos, but at the end of the day, I'm happy to be in my unit. My unit provides a non-commissioned officer like me a vantage point that no soldier or even politician has on the war. It's a really good combination of combat involvement and macro, like bird's eye view of what's going on in this war, which is very important because the misinformation on both sides of the war, and within each side on both sides of their respective political spectrums, the misinformation is just insane, and it can drive you mad knowing that you're being lied to on this channel and on that channel. So I just go back there sometimes just to be in the know.
Yeah. So it's the relatively best place, or it's relatively a good place for you to be compared to other areas. But I guess what you're pointing to also, it's like the decisions and based off the tests and time spent from 16 and 18 to 21 set you for where you're going to be for the next maybe 20, 25 years of reserve. Whereas a lot of people might go off for university or career paths or different things.
Yeah.
There might be a good, like a midway, like reaptitude skill program to, so I could see how there could be improvements there as well.
Yeah, the army doesn't do that enough. Maybe
Yeah.
after this war, who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, thank you. That was another detailed answer.
That was a really good insight. I'd never even thought about that. Donnie, what about you? Great question too.
Yeah, this has
Totally.
all been super valuable so far. For me, I've always been interested in AI. Actually, originally went to school because I want to develop AIs, so I had gone for computer science. But what I'm curious about is being more hands-on with it. Do you have any insights into, I guess, the perspective of what the future of AI looks like right now and kind of the developments and where you see that trajectory going right now? Like, we have super advanced AIs pretty soon, or will it be at general intelligence? Like, what is that like?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that with respect to technological development on the what we call upstream, like Meta, Grok, Copilot, Gemini, obviously OpenAI, Claude, Llama, open sources, assume the exponential, meaning that we will see, you're already seeing regenerative sort of AI that isn't based on the data set and creates its own information. And at one point, yes, you'll feel like it's AGI or ASI. It won't be, I don't think it'll be like a aha moment. I think it's just going to be like sort of we'll cross that point without really noticing it. That's not, I don't think that's necessarily the singularity per se, that we can't see the horizon we can't see beyond technologically. I don't know when it's happening. It'll happen in the next few years. I think Musk said 29 is an important year. With respect to where business is going, I mean, as it evolves, what I wrote in my book is that basically forget the end game where, you know, whatever, Skynet, it kills all of us. I don't know. That's like builds a Dyson sphere for itself and burns us in the process. I don't know, whatever. Let's leave that. Let's put that aside. Let's say that N-1, like right before it does that, it's bliss for all of us. I think that it's going to mine a lot of time for us. So it's going to replace things that take us a lot of time. Then there's a question of what do we do with that time? That's one. Two, it's going to enable experts in their respective fields to perform better. So if you look at a picture generated by AI, a picture generated by an expert photographer is going to be better than a picture generated by someone who uses AI a lot. An expert photographer will set the parameters the right way, the picture will be better. So it's going to be a renaissance of boomers and experts, unlike a lot of previous technological revolutions, which were not. They sort of like detached that generation from society. Three, I think it's going to require a significant change to the education system. I think up until now we could have complained about the education system, but now it just needs an effing overhaul. It cannot last in this in this new age. Pardon me, I have to take antibiotics. I have a root canal coming. 1 second. And then, I mean, we can talk about risks later, but with respect to where the world is going, where to focus your time, I predict the significant growth of 7 markets, and then that revolve around the subjective human experience of life that AI cannot take away from us, and an 8th market, which is the education tech market. So, and when I say education tech, I mean also something like what Dylan mentioned, which is like faster reassigning of people in the army. It's in that world, right? It's not, it's in the higher learning space or later in life, but I'm talking about age 0 to whenever. And the other 7 markets are, I think spirituality is going to be on the rise, anything to do with community versus loneliness, physical pastime, digital pastime, food technologies divided into the enjoyment of food, and also just dealing with food as in cultivated meats, etc. Sex tech, like sexual wellness technology, not necessarily porn, and rapid legalization of much harder drugs than marijuana. That's what I see happening in the next 10 years. As AI does more and more of coding and stuff like that. I also think that a lot of people will be able to bring basic ideas to fruition much faster without having the hurdle of having to go through too many coders or developers. And that's going to create a influx of new single founder companies. And there's going to be a lot of noise in that sense. That's what I believe.
It's awesome. Yeah, I've heard a lot about the community one as well, because they're like, you can't replace this kind of connection, even though it is virtual, but it is also cool that it is virtual. And yeah, I think the insights are fascinating. And I have heard about the single founder companies. They're talking in 10 years, there could be $1 billion company with one person.
Yeah.
They'll have all the AI bots just do your thing.
Yep.
Chase, what about you? What do you think about what Nimrod's got going on?
Yeah, he answered like 2 of the questions I had pretty much, but I'll ask, Um, from your standpoint, you know, being in the IDF and being in Israel, you know, I'm over here in Florida, and you know, from what I see online, like you were saying, like there's just so much misinformation, and I think some people speak before they, you know, look into things and have an idea of how things are going and stuff like that. I just, yeah, how do you handle, I guess, like the psychological impact? Just if I don't know if you feel like sometimes the world is bearing down on you guys, or um, you know, because I've had friends that, you know, follow the whole, you know, free Palestine thing,
Yeah.
and you know, it's just like you said, it's just so much misinformation out there, and I do a pretty good job at staying off of things, and because you really just can't even trust anything now. So just kind of like broadly, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, if I dive into it, it becomes extremely frustrating, like to a point that it will trigger trauma. Not
Yeah,
post trauma in the combat soldier military sense, because I'm not under, you know, physical threat. I'm not being shot at, but rather like this sort of like moral anxiety that causes me to freeze. I'm afraid that any oversimplification of this conflict by an observer does not do it a lot of justice. Be it if you adopt a free Palestine approach, or the body count approach, or if you adopt they did all this to us on October 7th and we have to get rid of them until the hostages come back approach, which is the sort of indignant Israel approach. Either way you look at it, it's oversimplifying the situation, which
yeah,
is very complicated. That's one. Two, I think it's futile to engage in a conversation, the purpose of which is to reverse engineer who is just in this war. Because Israelis will point to October 7th and what happened then, at which point they will be either challenged that maybe didn't even happen, which let me tell you, it did.
yeah,
I've lost friends, and I've seen it with my own eyes. People will say that we let it happen. Let me tell you, we didn't. My unit killed 246 terrorists on the border in the first hour and a half.
wow,
We did respond. We were just equipped to respond to 246 people after, for 20 years, we weren't attacked by more than 3. We just did not equip ourselves to respond to 6,000 people because we missed intelligence-wise. It happens to Israel once every 50 years. In fact, it happened on October 6, 1973 as well. And it happened to the United States on September 11th, and it happens to countries with the best of intelligence. But then others will say, but it didn't start on October 7th. It started because of the occupation. And then you get into this, again, futile back and forth of we left Gaza, but the occupation is in the West Bank, but Gaza's an open border, an open air prison, but Egypt is also blocking them. But, you know, whatever, there was a pogrom in 1937 against them or against us. You go back in time, it's futile. So I welcome any form of scrutiny by, thanks, Donnie. I welcome any form of scrutiny on Israel from abroad, especially from allied countries who support us financially and politically. I think we need this scrutiny. I think that Israelis sometimes say that they're the chosen people, forgetting that this is not a, they might say that it's God-given. It's not. It's something you got to earn. And you gotta align yourself with certain morals and principles and values. So I welcome the scrutiny if it's educated and based, and I know what I criticize my government for, etc. But if you want to talk about this war, I recommend a completely different vantage point or perspective or paradigm, if you will. Here's the paradigm. There's 9 million people here. and we're having a great effing time most of the time. We have a great country. It is really good. GDP is high, is the fourth happiest country in the world, and growing. The other countries are Scandinavian. It has almost the longest life expectancy in the world. I think it's number 3 or 4 or 5. Almost the highest healthy life expectancy in the world. Also in the top 5 or top 10. It has the 4th bottom deaths of despair in the world, in Israel. So that's suicide and overdoses. It's a country that has the most patents per capita, most Nobel Prizes per capita, and most unicorns per capita by far, third to the United States and India. China and Canada are behind us. What am I trying to say here? We have a really valuable asset that we're holding on, right? And then we have historical trauma from the Holocaust, regardless of the Palestinians. So we've got this fixation. Then religiously, forget which religion is right. There is a land here which has holy sites for Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And under Israeli rule, Christians, Muslims, and Jews are free to pray in their holy sites. You are not free to go and pray in Christian sites in Iraq and in Iran because they've been destroyed, right? So, or in Lebanon, etc. So we've also guarded that. And finally, we do have a relative, within Israel, I'm not saying the West Bank we have to solve, but we have liberties here that are similar to other Western democracies. We're representatives of Western democracies in a world that is slowly splitting between East and West. What am I trying to say? We're absolutely not going anywhere. There's no chance. Biblically speaking, if we're cornered, there will be atom bombs all over the world, and it's not a threat. We will simply not give this asset up. So that is the first starting point. You want to say, now we can start from there, right? It's the same way as, despite everything that the Americans did to the Native Americans, you're not going to give America back to the Native Americans. It's simply not going to happen. It's done. Right. No matter what injustice was caused, it's done. It's in the past. It's finished. It's 3 generations past, right? I don't see anybody I know chasing the justice of their grandparents, certainly not their great-grandparents. So that's that. Now let's start dealing with the fact that we have 5 million people who, at least outwardly, claim to self-identify as a people, Palestinians. As a member of an intelligence unit, I will tell you that that is not so simple. They're very tribal and split among themselves, but let's give them that. They are the Palestinians. And whoever says there were no Palestinians before 1964, when they created the PLO, stuff them. Let's just say they all arrived at a common denominator and they're all Palestinians. And Israelis will not want them to dilute the Jewish vote in Israel, which means that they need an avenue to express certain freedoms, be it under a Muslim autocracy or in a democracy or whatever. There's 5 million of them. We can't simply ignore that. And it entails a long process to get to that. So far, they've been practicing violent resistance. And what it has done is it has put us on the defensive and has made us more righteous, and we're stronger, so we're responding accordingly. They refer to their leaders as Mandela's and Gandhi's, but Mandela in his later years was not violent, and Gandhi was never violent. I believe that if they if they're cornered into it, or if they're paid for it, if they manage to create a 25-year period of quiet for themselves, they will be able to self-determine and have a nation. And you can see that in the metropolitan cities in the West Bank. Ramallah, Bethlehem, and Nablus are snitching on their friends in Jenin, Tulkarem, those are refugee camps in the West Bank, so that they don't carry out terror attacks during this war, so that they get to keep their cheese in place, right? So if you get the same incentives in the Gaza Strip, which is now being the fanatics are being ripped apart out of there, then you have a chance at that. So I'm hoping not for peace in my time. I'm just hoping for just peace and quiet for 20 to 25 years. Mind you, last point, everything you're seeing here is simply one front line of a global war between East and West. There are functioning autocracies and dictatorships governing hundreds of millions of people, starting from China, in the East, and they are functioning. They are functioning. And there's Western liberal democracies. And we're in one front line, and there's another front line in the Ukraine. If Israel wins this war and signs the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia, it will connect between the Western world and the most important country in the world, far more important than the United States and China combined, and that is India. India will be connected through Saudi Arabia to the Western world and will be able to provide its natural resources through a clean gas pipe to the Western world. What that does is it renders the non-functioning autocracies of Central Eurasia, which is Russia and Iran, it renders them irrelevant. Their people have been brain drained. The smarter Russians have left to the US, to Israel, to Europe. The Iranians have been destroyed by the Shiite IRGC. And all they have to sell you through dirty gas pipes is oil and gas. And they are the ones who are on their back heels. And that is why you see Putin amending the nuclear strategy law. That is why you see him testing nuclear missiles. That is why you see him strengthening his partnership with North Korea and the North Koreans testing nuclear missiles. And in my humble opinion, it ends with Israel signing the Abraham Accords and with China reeling Putin back for money in exchange for the world looking the other way when it takes over Taiwan. That's in my opinion the end game, and then your next forefront of World War 3.2 is in Africa. And that's sort of like sets the whole conflict. It removes the religious discussion. It puts Israel in its place. It's just tiny forefront with the Palestinians. There's bigger things at play here.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was incredible. And you mentioned you said the oil running from India to like
Saudi
over there
Arabia.
in Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't worry, Chase, I recorded it. So if you want to listen back, we definitely
I
can.
mean, I think it's clean gas. I don't know that they have oil, but when you hear about there being Islamic riots in Bangladesh, that is not spontaneous. That is geared at destabilizing India because this is where the front is shifting to. When you hear India going to BRICS, to the BRICS conference, that is India showing the Western world that they can play both, both games if the Western world doesn't compensate them enough. So it's really very complicated, and we're just stuck in the middle of it. And really, our people and the Palestinians, their leaders. And also our leader, but our leader in a bit of a more elegant sort of within the democratic laws, they're weaponizing religion and justice in this, when actually it's all about assets. When you have the Hamas and its leaders and the Hezbollah and its leaders worth a total of 14 or 15 billion dollars among 5 people, you know that something's wrong because they don't own SpaceX. They're just taking a cut for doing whatever they need to do.
Wow.
See, and that did tie in perfectly to the question too, because I'm not, what you said makes total sense when I keep in mind what I knew, and then what you're saying. And I think that's just so important for people to know too, because people really do think it's just all about religion and um you know whatever and whatever else, but there's a bigger picture. And yeah, you said that really well. So
Uh, abs-
Religious scholars have a really good way of reinterpreting the different testaments to fit certain agendas, right? How is Saudi Arabia suddenly pro-Israel as the indigenous people of the land of Israel and willing to sign the Abraham Accord soon? Yeah, sure, paying some political dues regarding first there'll be a Palestinian state or discussion about it. How is that? How are Christians who for 1,500 years blamed the Jews for selling out Jesus? How are they suddenly, seeing this work out? This is just it's I think that the religions in this case are very good if they bestow their, turn the other cheek, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Don't be an asshole, don't murder, kill, don't murder, steal, or, do all or lie. But when they're within that realm of, or be grateful, right? When they're within that realm of bestowing values, they're great. But otherwise, the other aspects of these religions, they're used to weaponize the masses and the poor specifically.
Well, puts you, I would say, an interesting place, the East and West and the reshaping of the world balance, because I think the driver and the catalyst of what's going to separate that in the next 3 to 5 years is AI.
Yeah,
That's the new industrial, like World War II was won because of the industrialization of the United States and its factories into GM and all the other factories making tanks, weapons, this and that. The AI difference is what does it now, and that's why I like Palantir too, the CEO. He's very open in his stance in the world order and the East and West, and putting it in the hands of the right people and governments. And you do have to make a decision as a business who you operate with and where your values lie. And there's a lot more there's a lot of depth in every perspective, but it comes down to a more of a core set of morals and values and beliefs between people.
Absolutely. Let's get to Solomon really quick, because I know he still hasn't asked a question, and I see him taking notes, so it might be a detailed one. And then we'll try to get this going.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So thanks for coming on. You have really interesting expertise in 2 areas that I'm very interested in. And so it's been very innovating listening to the conversation so far. I have 2 follow-up questions regarding AI and then a 3-part follow-up regarding the geopolitical summation that you were giving. So firstly, regarding AI, it's really gratifying. So I work in STEM, but I'm actually terrible at math. And so it's been very gratifying to hear somebody who has expertise in this area confirming some of the notions that I had. In particular, I think that you're spot on with this idea that the future of AI isn't in bigger models where it's like we have like 18 terabytes of data that we've trained it on. It's going to be finding like these niches where you can train it really, really well on a specific subset of data. So like, I mean, the way you said it, like training a model to write the best legal deposition that you possibly can. Or one of the other ones that I've been thinking about is like in medicine, like train it to be like the doctor puts in, I'm seeing these symptoms, like pull up everything that's ever been associated with these symptoms. And so I think that that's definitely I agree with your assessment there. I wonder if you could speak to the how I guess the business structuring side of this? Do you see this as something where it's like right now the publicly available like ChatGPT is like pay $20 a month for the membership? Do you see that as the future, or maybe something more like with scientific journals where it's like you go to the university or the hospital or whatever it is and they're like, hey, I have a proprietary AI model that will make your doctors or your professors or
Yeah.
whoever it is work more efficiently? That's question number one. Secondly, I was curious, you brought up education, and I was wondering whether you could speak to differences in Israeli education versus American education. I think that most people are dissatisfied with the course that education has been taking, generally speaking. But I don't know whether, at least in America, I strongly feel like there's not a coherent diagnosis of what the problem is,
Yeah.
or what should be addressed.
Yeah.
And I will see if I can
Hold off on
boil. Yeah, go ahead.
Hold
I'll
off on
answer
the
these.
third one because I
I'll
left
answer
those.
these two, and then I'm happy to also answer the
Okay.
geopolitical related or war related questions. So business models, wow, man, jury's completely out. I have no idea what's going to happen. I know that, my company ARC, it it competes with law firms. So all we need to do is break the hourly model and charge fixed cost or subscription, and companies will slowly come to us. Note that if they do come to us, I believe that we will need expert humans, expert rainmakers, who are very expensive to own the relationship with the client. So it's not a SaaS startup that has a successful salesperson. It's partners in law firms who make between $1 million and $2 million a year, who are salespeople for ARC, making their money through the equity to get subscriptions. On the other hand, Posterity sells a book for $20 a pop, and then upsells by distribution, audiobooks, podcasts based on the book, etc. In terms of like, if you go upstream, like if you build an AI model that's trained on a data set, I think we're still away from AI enabling you to develop an AI model, an LLM, because there's not enough developers who actually know how to develop the LLMs, and it still costs 20 to 50 million bucks VC investment to develop a good LLM in-house. So what you're going to see is the companies that are building skins or platforms on top of existing LLMs, it would be prudent of them to develop what we call LLM agnostic strategies, so that for each task you go to GPT-4o and Claude if it's creative. You go to GPT 3.5 and Perplexity if you're doing, or Gemini and Perplexity if you're doing research. And then you've got backups to them, and you've got an AI that actually does benchmarking of the results, right? So you're completely agnostic, and you can switch around and go back to open source if they all shut off on you. So you're not dependent on one of them. Those apps that will build something on top of GPT, they're dead if GPT sneezes a similar app to the public. So that's in terms of the business model. When AGI does your own AI model, and I don't know, that's singularity. I have no idea. But I think that on a global scale,
that's when we get the Dyson sphere.
That's when right before the Dyson sphere, we get universal basic income, right?
Yeah.
Because we're making up money. So at least we're cutting a check, I don't know, every month. So that's that. Is Israel versus US education? We're both screwed. We built this country to do all the great things that I described earlier. We cut a lot of corners, like we copied corporate laws from England and sort of merged them with Delaware. We copied the education system from the United States. It's all memory based. They just teach us shit to remember. And we go to school to exams, and that's it. Two advantages in Israel are: one, till what hour do you study typically at school up until high school? Like, what's the day look like? It's like 9 a.m. to what?
Till like 2:30.
It's like 2:30. So in Israel, it's like 8:39 to 12:31. You spend more time at home. So that's where you sort of learn more. And the other thing is the army. The army is a melting pot. Israel has very little poverty and man-on-man crime, and a very high percentage of people go to higher learning institutions because of the army, not because the army sort of does a catch-up for people who would have otherwise lost. But the education system here needs to go as much of an needs to undergo as much of an overhaul as the education system in the US. There is a place that I was impressed with. It's Australia. Australia's education system is very interesting. Teaches thinking, teaches sort of like values. It's multidisciplinary. Very interesting to look at. Also needs to incorporate, AI into all of its. Teaches a lot of arts and music and stuff. Also needs to incorporate a lot of AI. Frankly, all of the systems are not good enough. The moment they're still hinging on industrial revolution settings, which is like to prepare you for an orderly world, they're not hitting the mark. That's not the world you're going out to. It's complete chaos outside. So yeah, I can't say very good things about the education system in Israel. It's there's just some catch-up points when you're spending time at home and in the army. And what are the questions about the geopolitical / war?
Yeah, I think the idea of the army as like a sort of universal social education seems like a big value add.
Yeah, Ben-Gurion called it a melting pot.
Yeah, it sounds like I mean, you've got presumably people who maybe didn't do so well in school.
Yeah,
people
you
work on AI.
You got gangsters here who suddenly are doing really well. Yep.
Absolutely.
Can I
Yeah.
Wherever you go.
So it struck me that in a lot of ways in a lot of ways the key dichotomy with regards to Israel and Palestine is not Israeli versus Palestinian. It's Palestinian versus Arab. So the more that Palestinians are or the people, let's say people living in Palestine are identified as Palestinians as opposed to Arabs, and that gives room for countries like Saudi Arabia to distance themselves from it, because then they don't have to position themselves as like the defenders of the Arab, the Arab race. At the same time, I was one of the things there were kind of two things that were refreshing listening to you talk. One of them was you have a very positive outlook, I think, about AI, but then you also seem to have a much more bullish isn't the right word, but regarding the Russian war or the Russian war zone. I think that your analysis from what lines up much more closely with my own than mine does with people around me, I guess, which is that this is a war of desperation. They are looking at their demographics and they're saying, all right, if we're going to do this, we got to do this now. And so they're launching. And so regardless of what the outcome is, I think in some ways Russia is going to be in a weaker position. And the thing that was striking to me in both of those is that there's a kind of elephant in the room. And I was wondering if you could speak, or maybe we could say a turkey in the room. And I was wondering if you could speak to what the Israeli relationship with Turkey is, especially given, as I think you're probably well aware, the Crimea has historically been a region, and the broader Black Sea region has been one of Turkey's primary kind of power centers.
Yeah.
So do with that what you will.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting bringing Turkey into the mix. Very important country with a history as an empire that's still lurking in the back of their minds. The Ottoman Empire. That is the empire that defeated the Roman Empire, that took down Constantinople after 1465 years. So they have a lot of pride. Yeah, I'll go back. I'll address everything you said. The Palestinians are Arabs who lived in the land of Palestine mostly. The land of Palestine being the land that includes Israel and Jordan, according to the Brits. And was Palestine, parenthesis, Eretz Israel on the coins, the land of Israel. It was just named Palestine by the Brits as a spite to the people there, bringing back the name of the Philistines, who have nothing to do with either the Palestinians or the Israelis. So that's just a funny point. They are Arabs who live here. They are by now 50 years in, 60 years in, they are united in their sort of like by their refugee status, which belongs to them thanks to UNRWA and the UN. No other people in the world get to bring down from generation to generation their refugee status, but it is a fact. It is uniting them, so we have to respect that. Okay, and then nobody wants them back, and the reason nobody wants them back is that the Egyptians do not want to destabilize the population in the Sinai and in Egypt, and the Jordanians are already 70% Palestinians, and the kingdom is barely controlling that population. They don't need another 3 million more. The Lebanese want to go back to being Paris of the Middle East. They don't want the few 100,000 Palestinians who are refugees there. So they are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And for that reason, and for that reason alone, they need some form of governance. You can't just have human beings not even being able to drive around, but they have to accept, and there's a problem in the Middle East because respect and dignity is a big deal. They have to accept the fact that it can't be with a military and with a capability to perpetrate what they did to us over the last 75 years. It's very traumatic to the people here. They can wait 30 years and then go to a normal conventional war with us. Fine, we've been to a few wars, yeah, the Arab world has a complicated relationship with the Palestinians because it wants to help them so that they do not end up being refugees in their countries. And it's that's just the case. There's a lot of hegemony in the other parts of the Arab world. There's delicate control by the different kingdoms and emirates and all that stuff. With respect to Russia, I think it's a war of desperation, and it also has to do with the age of their leader, who wants to leave an imprint. I think it's going to go either way. Either they get paid by China crap loads of money for their oil and gas, or they go back to being a democracy. They gravitate back to being a democracy like in the late 80s when they broke the Berlin Wall. It could go either way, depends on the leadership. But a lot of the strong-willed, more liberal people there have fled. Turkey is very interesting. I think that I think that the past is weighing down on them. Their imperial past is weighing down on them. But I think that most of the tax-paying population in the tourist centers and in Istanbul does not support Erdogan and wants Turkey to gravitate to Europe. And geographically speaking, that makes sense for Turkey. So Turkey seems to be playing both fields or all fields. what they are saying verbally does not coincide with the fact that not only do they export and trade with us, they actually buy defense and military technologies from us. So there is a very big, what you see is not what you get with Turkey. And they could switch around if they go more fundamentalist, if they get hurt by Europe enough times and they go and they go too much to the right, to the religious right, then yeah, they could turn around. But I don't think the Europeans are going to let that happen, because that's going to be a far bigger thorn in Europe's ass than it is for Israel. They need to send flotillas to get to us. They can't have a ground war with us. There's no world where that happens. They're barely controlling the Kurds at their west. I think Turkey speaks a big game, but eventually gravitates towards Europe and the Western world, which will eventually accept them. It's a gamble, though. Really, Turkey's almost like a flip of the coin for me when I think about it. But I'm looking at the facts. We keep trading with them. Bless you. The Turks who are in the tourist industry and the tech industry keep trading with us. You have to assume that those are the Turks who also pay taxes. This influences Erdogan. So he says what he needs to say for the rural or the more religious fanatics. But in the metropolitans where taxes are paid, they want peace and quiet. They don't want this shit.
Yeah,
Wow.
that makes a lot of sense,
And
actually.
Erdogan doesn't have an IRGC guard, right? Iran has two armies, two full-on armies. The Iranian army did not fire 500 missiles at Israel. It did not. The IRGC forces fired 500 missiles at Israel. Two completely different entities. The Iranian army may fire some missiles at us because in our retaliation strike, we killed six operators of S-300 air defense missiles who were coincidentally members of the Iranian army, which caused the IRGC to force the Iranian army to take part in the response. The Iranian army does not want to respond to Israel, does not want a conflict with Israel. Israelis were flying to Tehran in 1979, up until the revolution, to dance there in clubs and to do business there. These are people, the Persians are people who are like if Russia gets bought by China to not drop nukes on all of us, Iran is more likely to turn democratic or go Western liberal. The people there, the core of the people there, they want that. When you see a woman who gets beaten up for not wearing a hijab, and then you see, after the Israeli retaliation, you see a woman walking around in a bikini, despite the government, despite the Shah, that the Ayatollah, that means that there's a change there. That's why Netanyahu speaks to the Lebanese and speaks to the Iranians over the IRGC and over the Hezbollah, respectively. He believes that we have a common denominator and can make peace there.
Wow.
No.
Nimrod, you're incredible.
Thank you. That was very interesting.
I have 10 minutes left. I have this other call at 7. So Nimrod, I also don't know how you keep all the ideas in your head at the same time. I'm looking at my notes, trying to keep up with Solomon's question, and I'm like, this is a lot going on. But we'll hop into the greatest benefit of this conversation. So this is everyone's biggest takeaway. Then we're going to do action step and then gratitude. I'll start off with the greatest benefit for me has been the group asking incredible questions and Nimrod being able to answer all these. It's been absolutely amazing to hear. And there are a lot of subjects that I would never touch on. So I thought that was pretty amazing. Chase, for you, what's your greatest benefit of today?
You know, Nimrod, man, the answers were just incredible, man. Everything you said was super interesting, and you articulated it better than I could ever, I'm sure, in my whole lifetime. So, I appreciate you, giving us that information because, I'm one of those people that don't like to just post things online just because it makes you feel good or whatever. I like to think about things and figure out where things are headed and stuff. So I appreciate you, being informative and giving us those answers, because gave me some stuff to look up and be more interested about. So thank you for your time, man.
Cheers. Gladly.
Absolutely. Dylan, what about you?
Yeah,
What's your greatest benefit?
really appreciate you being on the call, Nimrod. And it was just interesting for me because like it's kind of crossroads of a couple of things that I've put a lot of like research into this past year. Like I'm not a tech savvy guy, and I'm finance driven, commodity side, and became very intrigued by AI over the past 3 to 4 years, and more recently the past year through investments and whatnot. So between that and then obviously any because I'm in commodities brokerage, any geopolitical aspects and war issues in the Middle East and Russia, Ukraine really impact just the business. So I've been getting more informed in that aspect, but it's nice to hear a kind of just like on ground firsthand perspective and from someone who has such a like I guess vast historical and geopolitical knowledge. And I also think too, just like being on the call is nice for a couple of reasons. In the US, like I travel a good bit, and whenever I speak with international backpackers, whether it be people from Australia or all over areas of Europe or the Middle East, it's just so nice to talk to them about global issues, because especially in Europe and the Middle East, when you're in the midst of things, you pay so much more respect to the history of nations and the relationships between one another. Like in the US, we're kind of isolated in a way, despite having such a global impact. Like if you go up to people on the street and you try to ask them to explain the issues and the conflicts in the Middle East or Russia, Ukraine, they'll have no idea, and they'll just regurgitate something from the media, which is all, now it's just talking heads and for entertainment and clicks. It's not, people with genuine perspective on it. So it's just nice to have that, I guess, firsthand, and you brought a lot of value to the conversation. Makes me want to research and learn a lot more when I need the right places to research, because it's not from the sources we have here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Nimrod's also he's super helpful. So like we'll see if we can get his email or something, and you guys could reach out to him afterwards. Solomon, or I think I dropped his LinkedIn, so you could definitely connect with him there. Solomon, what's your greatest benefit of today?
Yeah, I think just out of I guess the blend of insights that you have is really energizing, because on the one hand, AI is kind of this very particular technology, but then you also are able to bring this very wide lens geopolitical aspect. And so it's very interesting to hear the synthesis of those two perspectives. So thank you.
Appreciate it. All of it.
Absolutely. And it looks like Nimrod dropped his email and phone number on there. And then for you guys on the call, I'll get you guys all the prompting happiness. I'll send that your way, because I appreciate you hopping on. Absolutely. Jacoby, what about what says
How you
you?
feeling, man?
Okay. My greatest benefit, honestly, well, I mean, like obviously outside of Nimrod, is just talking to someone who has, I would say, a history and a path, and both paths that I'm looking to go down, because I'm actually like looking at my master's degree, and I wanted to, well, like the only question that I really had that, like, well, besides like the Israel stuff, but outside of everything you talked about, is like, what made you decide to go to, I'm not going to ask that right now, but the point is, getting to talk to Nimrod, someone who's not only going into AI right now, but also has an extensive history in law. So I just feel like that's very interesting, especially since that's like two of the roads that I'm currently going down.
Absolutely.
What I'm still intrigued. What made me decide to go to where? To entrepreneurship or to the army when I volunteered?
To law school.
To law school.
Yeah.
Very simple. I grew up a little bit in Australia. When I returned to Israel to do my last year of high school, I felt like I needed to catch up on Hebrew, and I couldn't take the burden of learning computer science together with relearning Hebrew. So I took social studies, and I couldn't like develop that into like a good degree in computer programming. So I wanted to hone my English and my, whatever personal skills, making friends and do business the other way. So I took law and business management. Today I would probably do law and economics just for the sake of using them as tools in business. I got sucked into the law firm because the first few companies that I brought as clients became very successful, and I realized I wasn't going to get paid nearly as much anywhere else, and I got stuck in a golden cage, and in a time where still career paths, you sort of like a lot of people were still staying in the same place for 10, 15 years. If I was in the same position today where people change jobs every 2 or 3 years, I probably would have left after 2 or 3 years as well.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, like, are you on WhatsApp by chance or no?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
gave the number for WhatsApp as well.
he dropped his number and an email. You have to hit him up on WhatsApp. Do not hit him up through the other one because you'll get fees left and right.
Yep.
And then Jacoby, just real quick, I'm doing this order right now because I want to get it done. Is yours 1205 Headley Court,
Yes.
apartment 1? Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. And then Nimrod, what's your greatest benefit of today?
Oh, the questions were amazing. I mean, Jacoby agreeing to lend an ear. The insight on, I actually might go back to my commanders and discuss with them reassignment mid-reserve duty. Question about Turkey challenged me very much. I got to really dive deep into topics that are, very interesting to me. It was just open conversation. And for me, it's also great to be able to speak with people from all over. And at the end of the day, a lot of what I have is educated opinions, but they're still opinions. So, seeing people's reactions when I convey them is also a little bit of a validation to thoughts that sometimes drive me insane. I'm in a country at war. A lot of the people here are, you know, like fanatic fans of a sports club. You don't diss the sports club mid-game. You don't come balanced. You come with face paint. So it's so I wanna have conversations that analyze the game rather. And it's cool that at least two people heard, one of them had a D&D map and the other was developing a game. So, people are clearly able to see, and even, Dylan's view of the stock market, commodities, people are able to see the big picture in other through other entities, like through, and not just bring it back down to like emotions all the time, which is just not the driver for why things happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And it's so true when you do get to validate your thoughts, because I know we're all in our heads and we have so many thoughts. Have an open conversation like this is absolutely amazing. So let's get into action steps really quick. And yeah, so this is what you're going to do this week. I don't know where you guys will take this, but we'll take it wherever it goes. Dylan, what's your action step for the week?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to get this, but I'll just action step tonight, work out again. I'm back in the workout routine, and I'll listen through to the Palantir earning call. But the conversation has me looking to reshift some of my portfolio, buy some more long-term calls. I think and this conversation came at a time that kind of reinforces everything that I'm looking at on that front.
Absolutely. Chase, what about you? What's your action step?
Last week, I was pitching a couple bigger jobs to some existing clients. I did get one to kind of go through, not the biggest job, but it was, something other than just lawn care trim and stuff like that. So, I just kind of want to keep that up this week. because obviously I hadn't hit everybody with it, and just kind of want to see if I can just score like a real big, like, landscape design, kind of on my own, like presenting it to somebody. So I'm gonna give that a whirl, try to get the big one. So
Absolutely. And the other big thing to remember, Chase, you don't no matter how big the jobs are, the bigger the job, you're going to get more rejections, right? But
right.
it doesn't matter because once you get that one that hits, you're like, good, we have someone who trusts with us and we'll ride with that. And that one person will pay off for all the no's that you got. So I think that's
Yeah,
important.
that's kind of like what I learned last week too. So I mean, I definitely agree with that. I got a little bit more comfortable with it, because I'm trying to just be a little more intentional with that part of the sales too. Like you should be doing that every week, multiple times a week. So kind of just make it a thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Solomon, what about you?
I'm trying to make 10 contacts.
Love that.
Um,
They're overlapping. Good, Solomon.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. I'm just
Good.
gonna align my
Align the
action
vision.
step for our 101 and for the group call.
Let it ride.
Make
Jacoby, what
10
about you?
contacts with PhDs.
Yeah.
Mine, honestly, is just to be a bit more intentional with my current goals because the more I think, the more new stuff I come up with. So I'm just going to try and focus on what I got, what I got going on. It's
I
a lot of
love it.
effort.
I love it. And then Nimrod, what about you?
I got to get these emails out to investors for both of my companies. I've been procrastinating, and now they're all drafted. Well, half of them are drafted. I want to send them out, and then I want to follow through on it. With respect to what Jacoby said, I'll just share my screen because I also have a ton of ideas. I don't know if you guys use Notion, but if you don't,
That's the best one. Sorry.
So there you go. So this is like me. I divided my life into like personal, money, professional, author and publisher, impact stuff, ideator. This is where I shove ideas so that I feel like I gave them, the respect they're due. And then you can see different things here that are being written. So it's your own like personal Wikipedia. And and you can also track, whatever mind and body relationships, etc. So I recommend if you find yourself like succumbing to attention deficit disorder and you're coming up with ideas, just respect them, write them down, but put them in the ideator section until they grow into something bigger.
Absolutely.
By the way, then you can feed that shit into GPT and tell it to act like you as an extension of yourself.
I love it. I love it. Okay, let's close it out with gratitude. What are you guys grateful for? Chase, what about you? I'm gonna get these orders in. Don't worry. I'm working on this ordering thing right now.
I'm grateful for this cooler weather we're getting.
Absolutely. Dylan, what about you?
Say grateful for freedom of speech, being able to express ideas and opinions and beliefs. And it's been a weird, election week in the U.S. A country that's built around those ideas, and feels like you can't have a conversation with a lot of people. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Solomon, what about you?
This is one of those days. I'm grateful for Zoom.
I love it. I love it. Jacoby, what about you? Oh, Chase said his phone died.
Yeah.
Oh, Chase was so passionate. He got his fiance to text me that his phone died because he felt wrong leaving early. His phone just died though. Jacoby, what are you grateful for?
I said I'm grateful for PTO.
Absolutely. You're learning about it. Good. Nimrod, what are you grateful for?
This session and having yeah still high energies. Sometimes I dip in this war, so I hope to keep that, and I'm grateful for having it throughout this week. Yeah, and for not being in a tunnel in Gaza.
Absolutely. Guys, I appreciate you all for hopping on. The other thing I wanted to say is next week I'm gonna move the meeting to Tuesday. Just scheduling. There's like Veterans Day, so I'll just move it to Tuesday. And
Got
the
any
other
plans
big
this
thing.
weekend?
What?
You got any plans this weekend?
Got some plans. I got some plans. I'm getting married this weekend, so we got some
Oh
plans
my
coming.
God, amazing.
Yes.
Mazel tov.
I, I've had to reschedule. I've had to adjust. We've had to move things. It's been a process, but it's happening. And we got the marriage license today, this morning. And yeah, no, I'm super excited. And for you guys, make sure Nimrod gave you the information. He gave you the phone number, gave you the email. So reach out to him. Don't be shy. He's super kind and like, don't let this conversation be the only one, is basically what I'm getting at. Now I'm getting Madison. We have a wedding planner at 7, but you guys got me.
Yeah, you gotta go. You're
I
in
do have
trouble.
to go. I do appreciate you guys. Nimrod, you are incredible. I can't believe it's 2 a.m. Solomon, you're the man. We will talk soon, guys. Appreciate you all. Have a good one.
All
Peace.
the best. Bye bye.
Take
Good
care.
luck. Enjoy election day.